Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy. Without any further interruptions, enjoy the What If. Chapter 17. Deathmatch. After Iruka led them to the barracks, Team 7 took the opportunity to rest, recover and prepare. Sasuke wasn't able to get the curse mark checked up, and decided to converse as much chakra as he could. Sakura watched over him, and while he showed his annoyance, he didn't tell Sakura to leave. When they fell asleep next to each other, Naruto let them rest and watched the other teams come in. The Sand team were apparently the fastest team to come in, taking 97 minutes to complete the second phase. Team 8 were second fastest, much to his surprise. Team 10 were one of the last teams, and Naruto, Shikamaru and Choji shared stories about their experiences in the Forest of Death, while Ino went and hung out around Sakura and Sasuke. Naruto had even got the chance to speak to Tenten and Rock Lee, her black-haired teammate. It was an interesting experience for him. Once the second phase of the exam officially ended, the remaining 9 teams went to a massive room with 2 balconies on either side of the arena and a massive statue at the end that rose to the ceiling. Enko congratulated them all, and made Team 10 and the other teams who were exposed to her extra challenge flinch from fear. The Hokage made a speech explaining why they had a Chunin exam, but Naruto mostly tuned it out because he was more focused on the looks of concern Kurenai was giving him. He hadn't really thought about what had happened between them back at her apartment, but seeing Kurenai's beautiful red eyes flash with worry for him made his heart flutter, and her relieved smile made his cheeks flush. The only negative Naruto could think of was that Karen hadn't made it. And he was worried that he wouldn't get to see the last remaining tie to his family that he knew of ever again. "I'm your proctor for this phase of the Chunin exams, Genma Shiranui," the brown-haired proctor said after the Hokage gave him the nod. He was dressed in the Hidden Leaf Village's Chunin outfit and wore his forehead protector like a bandana, tying it backwards. A senbon was clutched between his teeth and his hands were in his pockets. He was the backup proctor for the exams, third phase, and was surprised to get the call up after Hayate Gecko, the first-choice proctor, was sent on an emergency mission to the Land of Water. Normally, you'd be given a month to prepare yourself for a tournament-style fight, but instead, we'll be knocking out some of the competition with a preliminary matchup. Reason being that we can't afford to waste the time of important clients who will be visiting us to watch the tournament. The preliminary will consist of one-on-one matches. It's an individual exam from here on out, so if you do not want to participate, raise your hand and you'll be allowed to quit. Kabuto raised his hand. "I got poisoned after being bitten by a snake." He showed the snake bite on his forearm. "I can barely move without seeing double, so I have to quit." Genma nodded and Kabuto smiled in response, before grimacing and holding his forearm. After Kabuto and 2 genin from the Hidden Cloud Village left the arena-like room, Genma said, "There will be 12 matches and the participants will be chosen at random. Rules are simple. Fight till you drop dead or fall unconscious. I'll stop the match when it's necessary." The electronic display located at the top of the room flickered on, cycling through names before stopping. Everyone except Sasuke Uchiha and Yoroi Akato head to the stands. While the others were moving to the balconies, Sakura approached Sasuke and grabbed his hand. "Sasuke, be careful, alright? Don't forget about that." "I'll be fine." Sasuke's face twisted into a frown. "I have enough chakra from that girl to win this match in one blow." "Just be careful, alright?" Sasuke gave her a reassuring smile. "Thanks for your concern, but I'll be fine." Sakura returned it, and after slowly pulling her hand away from Sasuke, she went to stand with Naruto and Kakashi. "So, anything interesting happened during the second phase?" Kakashi asked, keeping an eye on his book. Naruto thought he felt Orochimaru's chakra lingering around 3 shinobi gathered on the balcony-like stand on the opposite stand of the arena. "Orochimaru. We fought him in the Forest of Death. He might still be here, lurking around." Kakashi shut his book. "That would certainly qualify as interesting, don't you think, Kurenai?" Kurenai's eyes darted to Naruto's. They made eye contact for barely a moment before she turned to face Kakashi. "Yes, it definitely does. The only thing interesting about that exam were those giant snakes," Shikamaru grouched, leaning on the railing. His team was standing close to Team 7 and 8. "What a troublesome thing those were." "At least we got the scroll in time," Ino commented. She ran a hand through her hair. Imagine. We fought and beat a snake the size of a large house, but we fail. How humiliating would that be? I know, right? Shikamaru shook his head in exasperation. It would be such a major drag if that happened. At least you guys made it out of the forest safe and sound, Asuma noted, lighting a cigarette with his fingers and taking a slow drag. Like Kurenai and Kakashi, his attention was focused on Sasuke. But you aren't out of the woods yet. Let the match begin, Genma declared. Sasuke activated his Sharingan and weaved through hand seals, ignoring the burning of the curse mark as it stole his chakra. Fire style. Great Fire Dragon. He unleashed a jet of fire that took the shape of a dragon's head, the size of which easily dwarfed the last Uchiha and his opponent. Instead of dodging, Yoroi, a tall young man wearing a purple outfit, black sunglasses and the leaf's forehead protector, raised his hands in front of him. They began to glow blue. The technique hit and engulfed him, but when the smoke created by the technique cleared and the flames subsided, Yoroi still stood. His clothes were charred and most of his skin was burnt, but his hands glowed blue, steam dissipated from all over his body and his skin was glistening like he had just been hit with a water-style jutsu. How did you survive that? Sasuke growled. He dropped to one knee and began to clutch his shoulder. How hard have you been training that kid, Kakashi? Asuma asked, taking his cigarette out of his mouth to whistle appreciatively. To pull off a technique like that? Not bad. Sasuke. He learned the technique by himself, Kakashi answered, more interested in the markings that had covered half of Sasuke's face and his left arm. Why should I tell you? Yoroi asked mockingly. Sasuke smirked and moved forward at a blistering pace. His fingers twitched, releasing 3 shuriken. Yoroi blocked them with a kunai, but that was only a setup for Sasuke to swerve in and drive his foot upwards towards Yoroi's groin. Yoroi dropped to his knees in abject pain. Sasuke delivered a flat-footed stomp into Yoroi's stomach, ending his misery. He had a chilling smirk on his face. Even if you were still standing from my attack, your skin would still be extra sensitive from coming into contact with all that fire. So I wondered, what would happen if I kicked you down there? He then roared in pain as the markings on his skin disappeared, clutching his shoulder again and dropping onto one knee. Winner. Sasuke Uchiha, Genma said evenly. Sasuke's Sharingan deactivated just before he collapsed. Kakashi appeared next to Sasuke and waved off the medics, taking him away himself. Naruto noticed Orochimaru's chakra disappear around the same time. He had a feeling the other Jonin knew Orochimaru was around, so he didn't press the issue. Meanwhile, Sakura watched Sasuke leave, concern evident in the way she bit her lip. I hope Sasuke will be alright, Sakura thought, feeling queasy after Sasuke's curse mark re-emerged. Naruto himself was pleased that Sasuke was going to have that curse mark attended to. Something he was unable to control that was rooting itself in his chakra network would be problematic, at the very least. Naruto watched the next match between Shino Aburame and Zaku Abumi, a shinobi with spiky black hair that wore the same forehead protector Orochimaru wore, unfold. Kurenai-sensei, Naruto asked nervously. What is it? Kurenai said coolly, making Naruto's heart skip a beat. What's that symbol on that Zaku guy's forehead protector? Naruto asked as the shinobi in question began to blast bursts of wind from his palms at Shino. The symbol is from a new village. The village hidden in the sound, Kurenai answered with a small smile growing on her face. Why do you ask? Just curious, Naruto said, before returning to watching the match, giving Kurenai an appreciative smile. Shino managed to trap Zaku with his Kikaichu, and when Zaku was about to blow Shino away, his right arm exploded from sheer force, at the elbow. Shino had the rest of his Kikaichu drain Zaku's chakra, earning him a swift victory. Shino Aburame is the winner, Genma said. Shino nodded and walked back to his team as medics came in to ferry Zaku away. Naruto noticed Kurenai smiling in what must have been pride. Kakashi-sensei, how's Sasuke? Sakura asked after Kakashi returned. Naruto watched Kankuro, the hidden sand boy with the black bodysuit, make way to the arena floor to face Misugi Tsurugi before turning to his official teacher. Sasuke will be fine. He had a minor case of chakra exhaustion and some mental stress, but he'll be alright after some bed rest. Sakura smiled shakily. She knew that Sasuke had trouble sleeping the night before, and was glad that he would finally be getting proper medical attention. These matches were pretty rough, weren't they? Kiba remarked after watching Kankuro substituting himself with his puppet after Misugi wrapped around his limbs, then using his puppet to crush Misugi's bones. Winner. Kankuro, Genma announced. The electronic display flashed, and it displayed 2 more names. Looks like I'm up, Sakura said. She smiled as if she knew the outcome of her match. Compared to everything that happened in the Forest of Death, this won't be that hard. Not at all. Let's see you say that after I beat you and your giant forehead, Sakura, Ino replied with a smirk. Naruto watched Sakura and Ino begin their fight once they made it to the arena floor. Sakura fought with everything she had, and Ino did the same. Unlike the other fights which were mostly one-sided and filled with brutal injuries, the fight between the two kunoichi was much more even. Sakura used everything in her arsenal: clones, ninja tools and substitutions to combat Ino. But not only did Ino hold her own, she managed to snag Sakura in her mind-body transfer technique. It looked like Ino was about to win, but Sakura forced Ino to release the technique through sheer will. After a few more minutes of fluid, but ultimately even-paced fighting, Ino and Sakura suffered a double knockout. Draw, Genma said in somewhat good humor. Is this the level of a rookie kunoichi? Tenten asked from her position a short distance away from the other Hidden Leaf teams. Kind of underwhelming, if you ask me. They actually put on a quite impressive showing, given that they only had 3 months of experience. The voice belonged to a man standing next to Tenten and her teammates, who had black bowl-cut hair and the Chunin flak vest worn over a green jumpsuit. Really, Guy-sensei? Tenten asked skeptically. I agree, actually, Asuma said after bringing Ino back to the stand. Sakura and Ino both did well. Naruto didn't agree. He saw something different, something dangerous in Sakura back in the Forest of Death, something she didn't have when she fought Ino. He spared a glance at Sakura, who was propped against the wall by Kakashi. Naruto knew that if Sakura fought like she did against Orochimaru, she would have won. But she didn't, and it made Naruto wonder if she really had what it took, because he wasn't quite sure. The electronic display flickered once more. It's my turn, Tenten said excitedly. Her opponent, the blonde hidden sand kunoichi, glided down to the arena using her fan. Do your best, Tenten. Guy said enthusiastically, giving Tenten a thumbs up. Yeah, good luck, Naruto said with a smile. Tenten nodded at Guy and Naruto, before jumping down. Tenten vs. Temari. Let the match begin, Genma said. Naruto grimaced as he watched the match roll on. All of Tenten's attacks were nullified by Temari's ability to control wind. Even if she was really good at throwing weapons, and even if she increased the quantity of weapons she threw, Temari countered everything Tenten threw at her. After Tenten's ultimate attack, the Rising Twin Dragons, failed, Temari cut her open with a powerful gust of wind created by her fan. With all of Tenten's weapons lying on the battlefield, Temari drew her opponent to her fan and planted Tenten on top of it, making her back arch unnaturally and knocking her out. Temari, you win, Genma stated. Temari smirked and flung Tenten off her fan. If this is the quality of kunoichi I have to fight, then this will be too easy, she said. When she saw Lee catch her, she smirked at him. Don't know why you caught her, but it's not my problem. Is this how you treat someone who gave her all in battle? He asked, holding Tenten in his arms while he was placed in a kneeling position. Temari scoffed. Just go and take that loser out of my sight. Lee gritted his teeth, but Genma came in between them before an unsanctioned fight could begin. Lee, go back to the stands unless you want to be disqualified. Lee gave his sensei's former teammate a nod. Of course, it was my mistake to assume that all shinobi had honor for the fallen. Naruto watched Lee set Tenten down for medics to attend to her before he walked back to the stands. Tenten's other teammate, Neji, was frowning, but Naruto briefly caught him glaring darkly at the Cloud Genin on the other side of the arena. He also caught Temari return to her side of the arena to take her place next to her teammates. Naruto frowned, clutching the railing tightly. Tenten was a nice girl, and was just unlucky to fight against her natural opposite. But the way that Temari acted really riled Naruto up. He was disgusted at how smug she was, and her willingness to disgrace her opponent further. Even if the fight was over. Will Shikamaru Nara and Karui come down? Genma asked after Tenten's numerous weapons were cleared from the arena. TCH. What a drag, Shikamaru complained. Now I have to fight a girl. Just go with it and do your best, Shikamaru, Naruto said supportively, giving his friend a smile. He put his hands in his pockets and walked down the stairs, taking as much time as possible to get to the arena. Karui, the redhead Cloud Genin, walked to the arena, fuming and barely restraining her anger. What the hell's your problem, huh? You mad that you're fighting a girl? Shikamaru groaned. Let's get this over with. Genma stepped back as Karui and Shikamaru stood face to face. Start. Immediately, Karui unsheathed her katana and aimed a downward swing at Shikamaru's neck. Moving with the attack, Shikamaru bent to the side and barely dodged the furious swing before jumping backwards. That was pretty fast. Flattery will get you nowhere, you chauvinistic piece of trash, Karui retorted, holding her katana out in front of her. Men like you disgust me, the way you think that women are inferior just because we don't have dicks. Shikamaru shook his head. Seriously, he traded blows with Karui a few more times, just inches away from getting cut up in critical areas. Even if Karui's strikes had a ton of force behind them, she still had enough control to guide her katana where she wanted to. But Shikamaru had enough of an idea about how Karui fought, and she was becoming more and more aggravated as she continued to miss. With a roar, Karui moved again, arching her blade in a horizontal movement that would separate Shikamaru's head from his shoulders. But just before she could behead him, "What did you do to me?" Karui asked. "Is this some sort of paralysis?" "Nope," Shikamaru replied, crouching while holding his hands in the rat seal. A shadow connected him to Karui. Possessed the shadow of your blade and used it to take control of your body. He adjusted into a standing position, which Karui followed. "Look, don't think that I have a problem with women. If I had been a second slower, I would have lost much more than this match. That means you have to be stronger or faster than I am." A wry grin appeared on his face. "My mother was the one who taught me how to treat women, and she definitely made sure to make that loud and clear." Naruto and Choji winced, remembering how Yoshino would act if someone didn't agree with her. "That's why I think it's a pain to fight girls or women." He raised his hand upwards to his neck, and Karui copied him. Her katana was now pointed at her neck. "Surrender, or else I can't guarantee your safety." Shikamaru moved his hand closer to his neck after seeing the undying determination in her eyes. "Fine, I quit," Karui snapped. "Shikamaru Nara wins," Genma announced. Shikamaru broke the shadow possession technique and walked back to his team, while Karui stormed off to her teammates. "Nice job, Shikamaru," Naruto said happily after his friend returned. While Karui was unusually talented for a genin, and had chakra similar to Karen's and his, Shikamaru was the type of person to take any opportunity he could to win and had several plans as backup just in case. Catching her off guard like that, Shikamaru smiled. "Like I said before, it wasn't that easy to get her into position like that." "Looks like I know how to get Shikamaru to do whatever I want now," Ino taunted. She woke up just before Shikamaru's match began. "Someone's scared of his mommy. Why do I even bother?" Shikamaru asked. He buried his face in his palms. Ino giggled a bit, but she stopped when she felt the temperature of the room drop by a few degrees. "What's going on?" "Kiba, I don't want you to face that girl," Kurenai warned. "I don't know how she got away with entering this exam, but she's far too dangerous an opponent for you to fight." Kiba glanced at the blonde cloud girl and grinned. "Really, she doesn't look like much. Why not give him a chance, Kurenai?" Kakashi asked, having returned to his book soon after Sakura's match. "Let's see what he can do against insurmountable odds." Kurenai frowned at Kakashi, giving him an icy glare. "I know how to handle my genin, Kakashi." "Really? Look over there." Kurenai did and resisted the urge to cradle her forehead with her hand. Kiba and Akamaru had jumped over the balcony while she was speaking to Kakashi. This might be a good learning curve for him. "Kiba, if you must face her, use your best techniques." "I got you, Kurenai-sensei." Akamaru had jumped out of Kiba's coat and moved to his side. The girl smirked at him. "You know, kid, I really don't like dogs." Kiba frowned. "Yeah, well you look like a cat, and I really hate cats, for your information." Let the match between Kiba Inuzuka and Yugito ni officially begin, Genma stated, taking his hands out of his pockets. Kurenai-sensei, Hinata asked as Kiba prepared to fight. Yugito stood there, bored and staring at Kiba with a half-lidded gaze. What are Kiba's chances of winning? Kurenai frowned. I'm afraid to say it, but I don't think it's possible for Kiba to win this match. Kiba scowled and activated his beast mimicry technique, which sharpened and extended his fingernails and teeth, blurring the boundary between man and dog. Crouching on all fours, he dashed towards Yugito and extended his right elbow. Naruto noticed how Kiba's chakra was altered somewhat after using the technique. It became more like Akamaru's, and felt his chakra spike when he charged. Yugito sidestepped the attack without missing a beat, and crouched onto all fours to avoid Kiba's follow-up. Naruto was surprised at her speed and the ease at which she dodged, although it looked like she was having a bit of trouble adjusting her position, as if she was used to making longer steps or taking more time to crouch down. Kiba returned to Akamaru and fed him a red pill. Looks like we'll have to go all the way, buddy. Akamaru barked, his skin turning red before he jumped onto Kiba's back. Human-beast clone. Akamaru became a carbon copy of Kiba and began to circle around Yugito as Kiba continued the attack. He charged in low, targeting Yugito's legs with the intent to catch her off guard. Yugito jumped over Kiba's attempted leg sweep, but her eyes widened as Akamaru caught her with a spinning tackle. Yugito was knocked out of the air, but she landed on her feet and successfully avoided another one of Kiba's spinning tackles. Hit and run, Kakashi observed after Kiba moved a safe distance away. Not a bad tactic. A proud smile came to Kurenai's lips. Kiba might just have a shot. Yugito heard Kurenai's words and smirked. Now, she moved with feline grace and speed, slamming her fist into Kiba's stomach and making him cough out blood. Again Naruto just noticed the extra second that Yugito took to close the distance. He knew that the other Jonin were aware of this fact too. Kurenai's smile faltered and Hinata shivered, while Shino's Kikaichu began to buzz slightly, clenching and unclenching his fist. Now, Akamaru, Kiba shouted, latching onto Yugito's arm. Akamaru jumped and spun, barreling into Yugito's back. But Yugito reappeared a short distance away, none worse for wear, while Kiba was sent skidding into the ground, taking the brunt of Akamaru's attack. Had enough yet? Kiba jumped back to his feet in an instant while Akamaru returned to his partner's side. That was nothing. Don't say I didn't warn you. She looked barely winded. Kiba growled and rushed behind Yugito while Akamaru went for the front and jumped in the air. Fang over fang. Both Kiba and Akamaru used the tunneling fang technique, but their rotations were faster and they both aimed at a single point, Yugito. Now, to put you in your place. Naruto felt her chakra, and the chakra of her tailed beast intensify as her left hand became wrapped in blue fire, which took the shape of a cat's paw. How amusing, the nine-tailed fox rumbled from within its cage. Matabi is attempting to make a statement. What do you mean? Naruto asked the nine tails, his mood souring as he heard the nine tails voice once more. The girl is using the two-tailed monster cat's chakra against her opponent. It is an unnecessary show of force, most likely intended to intimidate other Jinchuriki. I don't know. Naruto watched Yugito spring backwards like a cat, but Kiba and Akamaru adjusted their trajectory slightly to avoid hurting each other. Kiba and Akamaru turned on the spot upon landing, and dashed at an even faster pace. But Yugito met Akamaru's charge head-on, slashing him with her paw and burning his skin. Akamaru. Kiba growled as Akamaru's transformation reverted and he lay on the floor, knocked out. He stopped his charge on the spot by planting his hands on the ground with chakra, adjusting his stance so that he could achieve maximum velocity and strike Yugito with all the force he could muster. With a roar, he focused chakra to his legs and his right hand, before speeding towards his opponent and slashing downwards, just barely scratching Yugito's face. Yugito clicked her tongue. Her sidestep was a centimeter too short, and hammered Kiba down. Winner. Yugito ni, Genma declared before Kiba could touch the ground. Kiba hit the ground with a hard thud, but shakily stood up a few moments later and stumbled to Akamaru, picking him up and walking back to the stands. Yugito let her cat's paw dissipate and smirked, sparing a fleeting look at Naruto and the red-haired hidden Sangenin, before walking back to her side of the arena. Naruto was impressed with how Kiba was able to hold his own against a superior opponent and catch her off guard. Don't assume that you'll have a better showing than your foolish comrade. While I am far stronger than the two tails container will kill you, unless you use my chakra to tip the scales, so to speak. Naruto acknowledged the Nine Tails' words and glimpsed at Hinata administering her medicinal cream to Akamaru and Kiba, who suffered burns to their torsos. Akamaru in particular had a deeper wound than Kiba. Kurenai ruffled Kiba's hair. You did quite well, Kiba. I concur, Shino added. You used a good strategy, but you were unfortunate to face such a strong opponent. Kiba nodded unsteadily and took the opportunity to rest. Naruto felt slightly jealous at their interaction. They were a testament to a true team. Naruto thought briefly about his team. Recently, they had been nice to him. More significantly, they accepted him for being the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, and their interactions after surviving the ordeal in the Forest of Death were almost natural. The next match is Neji Hyuga vs. Hiromi, Genma said, breaking Naruto out of his reverie. Neji's eyes flashed with what might have been described as excitement, before he jumped over the balcony and landed gracefully. Meanwhile, Hiromi, the dark-skinned cloud girl with pale blonde hair tied in a low ponytail and dark brown eyes, walked down the stairs in long strides. Hiromi flashed Neji a warm smile, one that Neji didn't return. Ready? Genma asked. They both nodded. Begin. Give up. Neji began. I will give you one chance to forfeit and return to that excuse of a village you call home with your pride and life intact. If you do not take it, then it will be your fate to suffer at my hand. Hiromi's smile didn't falter, and she began to walk forward, her hips swaying with each step. Don't be like that, you're so handsome, and a handsome guy like you shouldn't say such awful things. Her voice came out like a soothing melody and her movements were like a dancer's, graceful, precise and tantalizing. She put a finger on Neji's wrist and slid it up his right arm and along his shoulder, stopping at his chin. Neji sluggishly raised his left palm to bat Hiromi away, but she twirled around it, giggling as she touched his palm with hers, intertwining their fingers for a moment and sending shivers down Neji's spine. Each of Neji's movements began to slow down as Hiromi rubbed her body against his sensually, touching him in strategic places that made him docile. She avoided Neji's last strike and backflipped smoothly. Hiromi's lips pulled into a seductive smile. You are the sexiest guy I've ever met. So very, very sexy. She stalked towards him. She looked at him like a predator would when approaching its prey. Over at the stands, Kiba was covering his nose and coughing loudly. That girl's pumping so many pheromones, he said between coughs while recovering from his loss. Kakashi had also taken a step backwards and placed his book over his nose. She must be trying to use an alternative method of fighting, Kurenai observed. Get to a male through his hormones and you can control him, basically. Neji was having an internal battle as Hiromi's words comforted him. He felt like he was going to fall asleep, and all he wanted to do before that happened was ravage the girl in front of him. He was about to give in, but then he remembered his late father. A cold laugh escaped Neji's lips as he activated his Byakugan. When Hiromi was about to touch Neji's heart with another of her feather-light touches, he slipped out of the way and touched Hiromi's wrist, sealing the chakra points located there. Seduction. Come on, Neji, Hiromi cooed. Just relax. She tried to move her hand, but it was numb after Neji touched it. Your attempts to steal the Byakugan have failed once more. But the method you have chosen to try and obtain it is pathetic. Disgusting and unbecoming. I assume that all of you ninja from the cloud came here to harvest the Byakugan. If you failed to retrieve mine, you would then turn your attention to my failure of a cousin. Neji chuckled, as if he was laughing at an inside joke. If you were to somehow succeed in obtaining the Byakugan, you would know that it can see everything the light touches, and so much more. Do you know what I see? Hiromi was shaking her hand, trying to get it to move, but Neji's hand flashed, and Hiromi's entire arm became slack. I see a girl with a pathetic amount of skill attempting to use her gifts to serve a pathetic, cowardly leader and aid him in his dishonorable, foolish attempt to defy his fate. Neji's visage twisted into a cruel smirk as Hiromi held her dead arm. And what's more, it appears that your wretched Raikage has not learned his lesson. Hiromi scowled fiercely. I would feel sorry that you had to endure this, but you made your choice when you decided to wear that headband and serve that abomination of a ninja village. And I hold no sympathy for fools. Shut up, Hiromi snarled, her voice no longer holding the tone of an intoxicating melody. I heard about you. You were the one who killed a Cloud Genin after he surrendered his scroll to you. Neji shook his head. Is that what you heard? Allow me to correct your mistake. He used genjutsu to disguise a tree branch as a scroll. I simply dispelled the genjutsu and took the scroll from him by force. But it matters not what happened to him. His life has no value to someone like me. And neither does yours. Damn you. You're going to die for what you did. Hiromi ran forward at top speed and threw her only working arm at full force. Neji moved around it and sealed the chakra points within her arm easily. Hiromi lashed out with a kick, and Neji disabled her ability to move her right leg. She used her remaining good leg to jump backwards and leaned on it. Let this serve as an example to all of you Cloud Genin who serve that pathetic man who calls himself Raikage, Neji announced. He moved forward and jabbed Hiromi's stomach 3 times, causing severe internal damage. Hiromi coughed out blood violently. As I cannot face him at the moment, it is only right for his ninja to be sacrificed in his stead. He raised his fingers and charged them with chakra, thrusting them towards Hiromi's temple as blood dribbled out of her mouth. Hiromi was replaced with a Tonto, and a girl only a couple of years older than Neji stood a meter away from him, holding the unconscious Hiromi in her arms. She had short blonde hair and wore a white flak vest over a gray shirt that barely covered her voluptuous breasts. She had mesh armor underneath her shirt, red armguards and a black skirt. As Hiromi's Chunin representative, I forfeit on her behalf, the girl stated coolly. Genma nodded. I can accept that. The winner by forfeit is Neji Hyuga. Neji observed the girl in front of him and scoffed. You may have stopped me from killing that girl, but it is her fate to be a sacrifice for your Raikage's arrogance. The girl stared impassively at Neji. What you're doing isn't cool. Hiromi, those other Cloud Ninja you fought, all of them were innocent. Perhaps they were, Neji accepted. But then again, my father was innocent as well, and he died because of your Raikage's hubris. Tell me, is that fair? Of course it isn't. It is fate for your Raikage to suffer loss proportional to what he has taken from the Leaf Village. You mean what he took from you, right? The girl countered. Neji's hand twitched, pulsating forward as he aimed for the girl's heart, but he was stopped abruptly. Might Guy was holding on to Neji's wrist tightly while he stood in front of the hidden Cloud Chunin. I understand what you're going through, Neji, but do not let your anger at things beyond your control cloud your judgment. Everything from the moment I was born has been out of my control, Guy-sensei. And everything that will happen will be but what fate has destined for me. He pulled his hand downwards, releasing Guy's grip on his wrist. His Byakugan deactivating, Neji walked away from his sensei, towards the stands. As far as he was concerned, it wasn't over. The Raikage couldn't acknowledge that his fate was to never lay his hands on the Byakugan. Unfortunately, he didn't understand that, even after his nonsensical demands forced his clan to sacrifice his father. He spared one more glance at Hiromi, watching her be stretchered out by the medics. Taking out his anger on the innocent was futile, and unsatisfactory, if he took his treatment of his cousin Hinata as an example. Instead, he would destroy whatever plans the Raikage had for the Hidden Leaf Village. Even if it took him the rest of his life, he would make sure that he understood the error of his ways. That is what he deserves. That is his fate. Chapter 18. Moving on. Neji walked back to where Lee was standing. He was fully aware that everyone was staring at him after his brutal and swift victory over Hiromi, but he didn't care. He had no regrets about what he did, and he would do it again. Before he could make it back to his teammate and watch the remaining matches, his cousin obstructed his path. Neji, are you okay? Hinata asked, her voice hitching slightly. Her expression was fraught with concern, and when Neji saw it, he scowled, flashing back to all of the times he saw Hinata fail, remembering how his father died. He shoved her out of his way forcefully. Hinata hit the wall shoulder first, but placed a hand on the wall for support. She was unable to even look at him, most definitely berating herself for not being able to stand strong when she wanted to support him. Neji leaned over his shoulder and glared at Hinata, internally scoffing when he saw that she had basically folded into herself. You have no right to care for my well-being. Hinata just let Neji rant, having heard his scornful words many times before. She had always tried to be nice to him, but no matter what, Neji never showed her any kindness. But she knew that he was right when he said that she was weak and useless. Neji didn't need to hear her excuses, for he could read her like an open book. Just take a hike, Kiba said, coming to Hinata's side. Don't listen to him, Hinata, he said, placing his hand softly on her shoulder. His winced, but he clenched his teeth. He turned to Neji and gave him a fierce glare. What the hell's your problem, huh? What did Hinata ever do to you? Neji observed Kiba supporting Hinata and casually ignored Kiba's question. He didn't understand. It looks like that old adage has come true. Birds of a feather flock together. A loser like Hinata can only be supported by another loser, it seems. He walked on, having enough of Hinata for the day. It would be unwise for you to continue berating Hinata, Neji Hyuga, Shino told Neji, his cold voice stopping Neji in his tracks. Why, she is stronger than you are. Perhaps not in skill, but in character. She possesses virtues that I suggest you adopt, such as humility, patience and empathy, as a start. Instead of being bothered by hearing Shino's scathing assessment, Neji merely ignored it. Shino was not the first one to inform him of his supposed flaws and he would not be the last. Protect your pathetic teammate all you want. It is her fate to remain a loser. Kurenai folded her arms, glaring at Neji. I suggest that you leave, right now. The last thing Hinata needs before an important match is her self-esteem being crippled by a member of her own family. Neji shrugged and walked away. If they cannot see Hinata for the weakling she is now, perhaps they will learn when she loses. Naruto thought about everything that transpired around Neji over the past few minutes and found himself comparing his own situation to Neji's. It was completely possible that he could have become like him, hurting the innocent and abusing the wrong people just because he couldn't get to his true target. And Naruto felt pride swell within him, glad that he didn't let a concept like fate define him. If he did, he would probably be much worse off than Neji. Omoi and Kintsuchi, it's your turn to fight, Genma said, chewing on a senbon. It seemed like he had a pretty good gig in watching all these ninja fight each other with all sorts of styles. Omoi pulled out the lollipop he was sucking on and sighed. If I win, I'll probably go up against that Neji guy. I don't want to go up against him, so can I forfeit? No, you idiot, Karui snapped. Someone besides Yugito has to put on a good showing when all the delegates come here next month. And that someone is me. With a sigh, he put the lollipop back in his mouth. But what happens if I lose? The Cloud Village's reputation would be shot, then the Hidden Leaf Village would take the opportunity to wipe us off the map. Then don't lose, the Cloud Chunin said. Don't lose. Alright, Samui, I'll give it a shot. He placed his hands in his pockets and strolled over to the stairs, suppressing a smile. Genma smirked as Omoi finally made it to the arena. Decided to finally join us, Kin, a kunoichi with dark, long hair dressed in a green vest, monochrome snake-patterned pants and matching scarf, smirked as well. At least you aren't going to wimp out like a coward. Let the fight begin, Genma announced. Kin drew out a pair of senbon and threw them at Omoi with practiced skill. Omoi unsheathed his katana and swatted the senbon away, but the senbon vibrated upon contact with the metal blade, creating an irritating sound that pounded Omoi's ears with impunity. Omoi dropped his katana and put his hands on his ears to stop the sound, which made Kin smirk as she pulled out more senbon. I attached bells to my senbon, Kin gloated. She threw a handful of senbon at Omoi. The Cloud Genin hurriedly threw his arms in front of him to protect his face while still holding his hands to his ears, and his ploy succeeded. His arms were pierced instead. When he pulled his arms away, he began seeing multiple copies of his opponent. Kin's smirk widened in size as she continued to throw senbon at Omoi, who was defenseless against her onslaught. And not only do those bells create a nasty sound, I weaved a genjutsu that will add to the fun. She chuckled maliciously. Omoi clicked his tongue. The senbon continued to poke and pierce him, gradually making him into a pincushion while the bells unleashed an annoying sound. His ears were about to burst, but he took hold of his katana and rolled out of the way of a trio of senbon flying towards him. He charged towards Kin and Kin took the bait, throwing more senbon at him. He replaced himself with a tree log, flashing behind Kin and placing the edge of his katana against her neck. That technique was so straightforward, Omoi told Kin, pulling her arm behind her back and hooking it with his, arching backwards to gain leverage. I could only imagine how much damage it could have caused. For one, it could have made me vibrate until I exploded. That would probably aggravate Karui, and she would try to kill you to avenge my death. Eventually, the hidden cloud village would probably destroy your village to gain more ground. While Omoi was informing Kin about his theory, he started to press his blade against her, drawing blood. That's enough, Omoi, Genma said. He seemed like he was annoyed that Omoi had beaten Kin. If he chewed on Sanbon, he must have liked them. You win. Omoi released his grip on Kin, who immediately grabbed her throat to stop the bleeding. Naruto watched the fight with some interest as Kin was taken to the hospital by the medics. The method Kin employed to activate her genjutsu was something that he wanted to learn himself. If he could apply genjutsu through weapons, his potential would skyrocket, and it would make him much faster and deadlier. It was something to look into in the future, since combining genjutsu and taijutsu wasn't working like he intended. The electronic display flickered once more. Hey, Choji, Asuma said after looking at the display. Think you're up to it? Gaara had uncrossed his arms and entered the arena in a swirl of sand. His menacing stare promised a world of pain, and Naruto was glad he wasn't fighting him. I don't know, Asuma-sensei, Choji said. That guy looks like he means business. Asuma smirked. Look, I'll tell you what. If you fight, I'll buy you an all-you-can-eat buffet after the preliminaries. Shikamaru groaned. That's not the way to do it, Asuma-sensei. You're only asking for trouble if you try to bribe Choji with food. Just try your best, Choji, Ino said with a supportive smile. If Lazy Bones here can win, why not give it a shot and see what you can do? Choji's eyes narrowed, but with a nod towards Ino and his team, he walked towards the stairs. Choji, Naruto called out, gaining his attention. Use your best technique. This guy, he's something else entirely, so if you can't get to him, then quit. Choji nodded and continued to walk. Once he made it to the arena, he faced Gaara. Ready? Genma asked. Both participants nodded. Begin. Choji went through two-hand seals, expanding his body significantly. He pulled his arms, legs and head within his massive body, becoming a large ball. With a boost of chakra, Choji sped towards Gaara. But just before he could make contact with him, he was blocked by a wall of sand. Choji continued to speed up to try and pierce Gaara's defense, but to no avail. Weakling, Gaara intoned in clear disappointment. The wall of sand shifted and Choji cried out in pain. A spike of sand impaled Choji's stomach and as a result, his special jutsu was stopped. Blood seeped from the wound as Choji put a hand to it to try and stop the bleeding. How pathetic. My mother won't be satisfied with the blood of a pig. The sand surrounding him began to shake up violently. Choji crawled backward. Proctor, I quit. Naruto couldn't blame him. Nothing he could do would penetrate Gaara's defense, and at the rate he was going, he would probably bleed out from his injury. Genma nodded. Gaara is the winner, by forfeit. Gaara scowled. Coward. Get out of my sight. Choji was ushered to the hospital immediately, as the sand surrounding Gaara shivered and lashed out. I will validate my existence. There are stronger opponents, there will be more opportunities to kill. And I will not rest until every single one of you remembers my name. And with that damning statement, Gaara returned to the stands. Naruto struggled to keep his composure intact. The amount of killing intent Gaara exuded was similar to Orochimaru, and his defense was fast-acting and incredibly sturdy, if it could block such a powerful attack. He was also someone who had no remorse with killing. The child's flaws as a human being are not entirely his own, the Nine Tails said. And how would you know? Naruto asked. The Nine Tails growled. The one-tailed tanuki known as Shukaku is capable of eroding the minds of its containers for its own purposes. However, it is by far the weakest of the tailed beasts, and as long as you use my power, your victory is assured. So I don't have too much to worry about if I can get around Gaara's defense. Perhaps, but as it stands, Shukaku's container is above your meager power. It is up to you if you want to surpass him. Naruto shook his head. He expected the nine-tailed fox to be the personification of evil. But it was merely bitter, and spiteful towards its fellow tailed beasts. Even so, he had only gained valuable information from the 9 tails, and this relationship had some advantages, at the very least. The electronic display flickered once more. Yes, Lee shouted excitedly. It is finally my turn. He jumped over the railing and landed on the floor with ease. His opponent, a boy with bandages covering his face save for his left eye, a monochrome camouflage scarf with matching pants, a violet sweater with long sleeves and a straw raincoat covering his back, followed suit. The match between Rock Lee and Dosu Kinyuta will now begin, Genma stated. Lee put one hand behind his back and placed the other in front of him, his forearm placed in a vertical position. Lee moved and launched a straight jab at Dosu's face, but Dosu blocked with his right arm. Immediately after, Lee groaned in pain and put his hands on his ears to try and stop the violent ringing in his head, dropping to his knees. Lee coughed roughly as nausea overwhelmed him. "What did you do?" he asked in between hacking coughs. Dosu pulled back his right sleeve, revealing a silver gauntlet with holes drilled in. "My melody arm allows me to control sound waves. If you're within range, then I will be able to disable you." Lee staggered up and returned to the strong fist stance. "Very well, then, I now know how to defeat you." The fight continued. Lee was able to stay just beyond the melody arm's reach while simultaneously attacking Dosu with precise and hard punches and kicks. While Dosu had a powerful tool and was capable of causing debilitating damage, he was unable to get close enough to hit Lee, who dodged yet another of Dosu's strikes and delivered a vicious leg sweep. Coming out from under him, Lee kicked the small of Dosu's back and into the air. Lee went to the apex of Dosu's attack and struck his solar plexus with an axe kick, sending the sound Genin plunging to the ground. "And the winner is Rock Lee," Genma said with a proud smile on his face. Once again, Naruto was left reeling from the shock of the match. Lee was the type of person he wanted to fight least, due to him being a taijutsu specialist who could easily match his speed. And he was also someone who could turn enemy attacks against them. He mentally added Lee to his list of dangerous opponents, joining Neji, Gaara and Yugito. Naruto looked to the display and grinned when he saw his name, but his grin slipped when he saw who he was facing. He looked at Kurenai for a moment and saw her face set into a mask of sorts, before hearing the voice of his official sensei. "Remember all of your training, all right, Naruto," Kakashi reminded, keeping an eye on his book. Kiba grinned as he tried to psych up his teammate, who had frozen after reading her name on the display. "You've got this, Hinata. You're up against the dead last. I mean, what an easy match, right?" "Kiba does raise a valid point," Shino added, pushing up his glasses. "But remember not to underestimate your opponent. A swift, decisive attack will ensure your victory." Sakura, who had woken up around the same time Ino did, grabbed Naruto's shoulder. "You've got this, Naruto. Just don't hold back." Naruto nodded and returned Sakura's smile with one of his own. "I know what to do, Sakura." He turned around and jumped over the railing. He could feel the eyes of the Hidden Cloud congregation on him, expecting to live up to his reputation. He also felt Gaara staring at him with cold, hard eyes. He could do this. He had trained too hard to not succeed here. Meanwhile, Hinata's hands were covering her mouth. But after hearing both her teammates support her, she walked down to the arena. When Naruto made eye contact with her, he could practically see a war waging itself in her eyes, like she wanted to fight, but she was afraid of something. Was she afraid of him? Naruto and Hinata stood up against each other. "Ready?" Genma asked. Naruto nodded vigorously. Hinata gave a more hesitant nod. Final match. Naruto Uzumaki vs Hinata Hyuga. Begin. Naruto moved, jumping as far back as he could to gain some distance. He wanted to test the waters first and see how his clones would fare against a practitioner of the Hyuga clan's gentle fist. After watching Neji's brutal use of it, Naruto wasn't willing to take any chances. He had a clone rush forward to begin fighting Hinata. Once the clone reached her, he jabbed forward with his fist, landing a clean blow on her face and sending her reeling back. The real Naruto's face twitched, expecting more. Hinata's head snapped forwards and she thrust her palm forwards to counter. When Naruto received the memories of his clone, he took a deep breath and tried again, summoning 2 more clones and having them run over to Hinata. If Hinata could destroy his clones with a single tap, he'd have to approach it from a different angle. Hinata took the time to activate her Byakugan and entered the gentle fist stance. When Naruto's clones approached her, she sidestepped the clone's jab and hesitantly poked 2 fingers at his stomach, but it jumped backwards, only for the second clone to make an attempt at kicking Hinata's flank. Hinata gracefully pushed the clone's leg outwards, but her follow-up lacked decisiveness and as a result, she failed to connect. The surprise on the clone's face was evident. Its face twisted into a scowl. Hinata tried to focus on the task at hand, and ducked under the clone's roundhouse kick. A simple thrust would be sufficient, but Hinata's resolve faltered once more and she wasn't able to connect. The clone grew frustrated and slapped Hinata with the back of its fist. "What's going on, Hinata?" The clone growled. "Don't you want to win?" Hinata opened her mouth to speak, but no sound would come out. Instead, she knocked the clone out, as it was too angry to block her. Meanwhile, the real Naruto was glowering. Twice now, Hinata had the opportunity to kill his clone, but she didn't follow through. He sighed, realizing something important. Hinata might have been nervous and all, but he was here to be promoted. He had his clone's dispel. In all honesty, while he expected a better fight, this was a golden opportunity to advance to the next round. And he needed to take it. He moved in and once he came next to her, he swerved around her palm strike and struck her chest with the flat of his palm. He slammed a knee into her stomach, doubling her over. Moving to her side, he brought his leg up and drove it down, smashing his heel into her back. Hinata was unconscious in 3 hits. Naruto shook his head. He must have been expecting too much from this exam and from Hinata. If she was from the same clan as Neji, he figured that she was good at taijutsu. But he got into her guard, avoided her attack and beat her easily. It wasn't what he was expecting, but he won. As far as he was concerned, that was all that mattered. "The winner is Naruto Uzumaki," Genma announced. "I want the rest of the match winners to assemble here as soon as possible." Naruto watched as Kurenai came down to the arena and tended to Hinata. Naruto looked at her and saw Kurenai return his stare, but she averted her gaze instantly, making Naruto's heart sink. She knew that Kurenai and Hinata were close, but he thought that maybe for a moment, she would congratulate him. Naruto shook his head. He was expecting too much. Kurenai's first priority was to tend to her official students. If he saw her again, maybe then she would congratulate him. It ate at him. Just a few days ago, she kissed him and drove his feelings into overdrive. It was just another thing he didn't understand. Why did she do it? To show affection, gratitude. It was something he didn't understand. But like everything else, Naruto simply ignored it for the time being. He could figure things out later on. After the Hokage informed the Genin that the 3rd phase of the Chunin exams would take place in a month, which would give the Genin an opportunity to rest, hone their abilities and prepare for their fights, he had Enko make the Genin draw numbers, which Ibiki took in order to determine the fixtures. Neji Hyuga vs. Yugito ni Shikamaru Nara vs. Rock Lee. Sasuke Uchiha vs. Gaara. Shino Aburame vs. Kankuro. Naruto Uzumaki vs. Temari. Omoi. Naruto listened in as the Hokage informed the Genin that it was possible for someone to become a Chunin by winning none of their fights and that it was also possible that someone would fail to be promoted even if they won the tournament. Once they were dismissed, Naruto's mind was whirling as he thought about what he needed to enhance his fighting style. Temari was a practitioner of wind-style ninjutsu and could use it very effectively. He needed to learn more ninjutsu, so that he could have more options when fighting. The best person he knew that could help him was Kakashi, who knew over 1,000 ninjutsu. It was important, especially since Kurenai would most likely be training Shino. It was worth a try, at the very least. Naruto found Kakashi at the hospital, just like he expected. "Hey, Naruto," Kakashi said. "How can I help you?" Naruto took in a deep breath, preparing for the worst. "I need help." "With what?" Kakashi asked. "I need to learn some ninjutsu and you know over 1,000. So I was thinking that you could give me a few pointers, maybe teach me a technique or two." Kakashi mulled over what Naruto told him for a moment or two. "Do you know your chakra affinity?" Naruto nodded. If he could tell what chakra elements virtually everyone else had, he could figure out his own. "It's wind." And apparently I have a secondary affinity of water. He had studied his chakra so much that he could figure out what other affinities he had. Kakashi sighed. I could teach you some water techniques to tide you over, but I can only really show you the basics for learning how to master wind. There was something in Kakashi's tone that set Naruto off. Is it going to take long? Kakashi ran a hand through his hair. I don't know, actually. It depends on you. Naruto frowned. Can I ask you something? Kakashi nodded. Why are you acting like this? I mean, I'm your student, right? So isn't the student supposed to learn from the teacher? About that, Kakashi put his hands in his pockets. I knew I wasn't really teaching you that much, but I had a plan set for you and your teammates. Once you got your teamwork up to snuff, I would start on chakra control and move on to stuff like ninjutsu as soon as I thought you were ready. Then what's the problem? Naruto asked, not seeing where Kakashi was coming from. My chakra control's a lot better than it was before. I know, and it's good that you've improved so much, Kakashi said, his voice not carrying as much pride as Naruto expected. I don't know what your problem is, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto snapped, quickly losing his patience. Can't you teach me? That's the thing, I have some things to do, so I can't really spend much time teaching you. Naruto clenched his fist. So what then, are you going to train Sasuke? Why not train the both of us? That's because I thought you had another teacher that you could train with. Naruto still wasn't satisfied with Kakashi's answer, since it didn't explain why he was training Sasuke instead of both of them. Remember, she's one of the village's few remaining genjutsu masters. Red eyes, black hair. I know, Naruto said, scowling fiercely. To be honest, I had my suspicions that she had a hand in training you, Kakashi said, much to Naruto's surprise. He thought that all this time, Kakashi didn't have a clue. It's just the way you interact. You're too close for two people who could be considered strangers. Naruto flinched. It was like Kakashi knew exactly what was going on between the two of them, instead of the broad strokes of the relationship. Naruto shook his head. Kakashi didn't know, he was just getting paranoid. I understand why you did it. You needed to find a way to become stronger and you weren't satisfied with my way of teaching. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad that you were able to find someone to help you. If you told me, I would have given you my blessing. I even gave you some space since your extra training was paying off in spades. I trusted that you'd tell me when you were ready. But I didn't. Naruto deflated. Kurenai was the one to tell him to keep their relationship secret and he didn't want to do anything to damage her trust in him. Anyway, Kurenai's probably gonna train Shino, so what am I supposed to do? Kakashi pulled out a water balloon from his pocket and threw it at Naruto. I want you to try and make this balloon burst with chakra only. As for your elemental training, try cutting a leaf in half with chakra. Focus on making your chakra thin and sharp. Naruto nodded after catching the balloon, committing all of Kakashi's advice to memory. And then what? Kakashi's eye crinkled. Go to the hot springs to practice your water style training. Focus on making a pillar of water rise from the pools gathered there. And if you find a white-haired man lurking around, ask him to help you. You never know what might happen. Thanks, Naruto ground out. Sure, Kakashi said, I am sorry that I'm not able to help you as much as I could, but Sasuke will die if he isn't properly prepared to fight someone like Gaara. And I have a way to help Sasuke not have to rely on that cursed seal of his. Naruto nodded, understanding somewhat where Kakashi came from. It's fine, Kakashi-sensei. At the very least, Kakashi gave him some form of instruction. And thanks for giving me something to do. Kakashi smiled. Just remember, if you see a white-haired man with a horned forehead protector with the kanji for oil, go and talk to him. Maybe you'll get something good. Naruto blinked in confusion, but committed the info to memory anyway. Will do. I'll see you around. He turned on the ball of his foot and left the hospital. He was disappointed that Kakashi wasn't able to help him like he wanted him to again, but at least Kakashi pointed him in the right direction. It wasn't hands-on training, but what Kakashi told him was something he could work with. He was just tired of being disappointed by others. He was tired of not understanding why things happened the way they did. But until he could understand, Naruto would just move on and make the best with what he had. He did it many times before. And he could do it all over again. That was just the type of person he was. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as well as checking out the author on fanfiction.net.